What a fabulous view. The Autodromo Nazionale di Monza. We're just about a half an hour's drive north of Milan in the city of Monza in the historic Royal Park, celebrating the centenary of this fabulous racetrack. The World Endurance Championship has been here every year since its inception 10 seasons ago. And there you are. That's nominative positivism there. We go from talking about Inception into the Project One Inception Racing Garage, completely by accident. I had no idea that was coming. Hello everybody, welcome back. Martin Haven, Graham Goodwin and Anthony Davidson ready to watch the final free practice session here with the full field out for an hour to finalise everything before we go into qualifying. And Anthony, after getting their eye-in yesterday in FP1 and again this morning in FP2, now is where they start to really rehearse on, first of all, full race setup, but also on getting themselves ready for a quali run.
Yeah, things start to get a bit more serious now. They've had FP1, FP2, like you say, Martin, and FP3 coming up in a few minutes' time. Final preparations going into the cars, and see here the Jota garage. Those preparations continue. But the drivers, you know, they know their way around this track by now. As you say, been here many times before as well. But new teams here with Peugeot's arrival into the hypercar category, the paddock, everybody here is super excited to see them here. And it doesn't just mark their arrival, it marks a new dawn, a new era for WEC. And we've had the golden age of the LMP1 categories where we had Porsche, Audi and Toyota fighting it out, Peugeot as well, of course, back in the day. But now you feel like this is a new era starting, and that's really where, you know, that excitement is starting to bubble up.
Well, that's the brand new Curva Alboreto Parabolic as was, and that does mark round 4 here at the 6 Hours of Monza, with still Fuji, a return to Asia, and we're all looking forward to that in September, and then the 8 Hours of Bahrain to round out this this championship. If you've caught up online with what happened earlier today, you'll know that there is some excitement around what's going on with this now 6-car hypercar field. 0.4 of a second separated those 6 cars, Hans. And what was interesting, quite apart from the fact they were that close together at this point, is the way they generated that speed in very different ways.
Exactly. Look, we talked about Peugeot's arrival here, or re-entry into the WEC. Great to see them here, but I'm so impressed, not just in terms of how professional it looks from the outside, but their lap times immediately. And I'm impressed not with just the team themselves, but it's the FIA and the ACO and the job they've done to make sure that the parameters they set in place in the build and design of these cars, governed by 4 simple parameters in weight of vehicle, downforce potential, drag, and power. Yep. You can go and build your car. You can, in the hypercar category, you can make it look however you wish to fit the looks of your road car potentially. You know, it could be a prototype, you name it. It can come here and they can all race together, because within that parameter, those 4 set rules of how you go about racing that car, you can design any engine configuration you want, and Peugeot immediately seem to be right up on the pace with Toyota. Here's a view of the circuit, broken into 3 sectors as always. Curva Grande on the exit of the first chicane through sector 1, brings you towards the second chicane, and the 2 Lesmo corners in sector 2, and then sector 3 starts at the Variante Alta, talking a different, that's Imola. Ascari chicane, I should say, to start you on your way through sector 3 to the newly named Parabolica. It's the Alboreto curve now. I find it hard not to call it the Parabolica.
Well, we will.
It just made so much sense.
We will, but we will get used to the new name over the next few seasons once it becomes fully embedded. So.
But yeah, a beautiful track. The temple of speed. and you know, a familiar feel to the drivers. So we're looking at Iron Dames here. They had a decent race in Le Mans, and it's a very similar track in many ways to Le Mans. The drivers will be familiar with the speed and the downforce of the cars, the way it feels here. Last year, of course, we had the other way round. It was Monza and then Le Mans. So it's a more traditional calendar now.
Yeah, we were reminded of that at lunchtime by the gloriously versed Louise Beckett, who will be patrolling pit lane for us, because we'd sort of forgotten that Le Mans was in August. Uniquely, there had never been a Le Mans in August. Was it August or September?
I think it might have been September.
September, wasn't it? Yeah.
We had a lot of darkness because it was later in the year. So yeah, more traditional calendar. Le Mans usually revolves around the longest day of the year, that weekend. So we've had that, and now we're here back at Monza. Yeah, like you say, to celebrate 100 years of Monza.
Astonishing, isn't it?
Amazing.
There's so many. We've got obviously the centenary of the Le Mans 24 Hours next year. That's another massive worldwide motorsport event. And oddly enough, one of the other major 24-hour races the following year, the Spa 24 Hours, has its centenary in 2024. And then there's more and more tradition and more history to celebrate every year in... It's a sport steeped in that, but we're writing new chapters in that history book, and it's a fabulous time to be part of the sports car racing family, whether that's on this side of the paddock or whether or not on the other side of the fence.
Alessandro Pierguidi jumping on board the Ferrari there. Now, he's been a busy boy, hasn't he?
Hot from testing
Hypercar.
Yes.
Fiorano, their new Hypercar at Ferrari. I mean, like we say, this championship, the arrival of Peugeot is just a sign of things to come. It's very exciting.
And all of the drivers that are currently their top string GT drivers here and in other categories are very much in the frame for driving a hypercar. And that man there, Kevin Escht, he's got to be right at the top of Porsche's
he's there.
pecking order in terms of hypercar drivers.
We had this conversation in another session, and when you get a driver with speed, and not only speed but a reputation for speed, and you've been that guy coming into a team as Kevin Estre has done, that's something special, isn't it? It's the gun, it's the daddy.
I think the more interesting thing here is that someone like Kevin Estre can learn from the likes of Nick Tandy in the past, when he drove the Porsche 911 and did that very well, of course, and then had his chance in the 919 Porsche top class LMP1, and it was kind of a sink or swim moment for him, wasn't it? Like, how we all know your skill set in a 911. How are you going to be in an LMP1 car? And of course, he took to it like a duck to water, and he absolutely flew in that car. And I feel like he paved the way potentially for other drivers like Kevin Estre to just, for a manufacturer, go, yep, you know what? He's not just a good GT/stroke 911 driver, he's a good driver. And we're going to put him in our car when we re-enter the top flight category.
Exactly right.
Well,
and I expect to see all these guys very much in the frame.
Well, both these drivers, Michael Christensen and Kevin Estre, are named in the first tranche. There's a couple more still to come for Porsche. We'll wait and see what they decide to do. Ferrari, it's very clear, are going to be appointing from within. The LED.
They don't actually do that. The human eye doesn't see it like the camera does.
This is the other new look car.
Oh, the smile comes to Graham's face. Look at this.
It's the sky blue. Romain Dumas aboard this car and bumped into Romain at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. When this car was running, he was in the Ford Supervan. As we are about to go live.
10 minutes. 1 minute. 1 minute to the start of free practice 3. 1 minute to the start of free practice 3.
So 60 seconds to go.
It's all right, nobody heard.
Bit of time travel going on there.
You had one job.
Yep. Blimp ride. I like that one.
Yeah, very good. Oh, that's very good. Yeah. Well,
although technically, like you said before, it's not a blimp.
But the Goodyear will tell you it is. But that's fine.
Branded as the Goodyear blimp.
It is.
Not
a blimp.
Two-thirds of your commentary team here have had a ride.
You've not had a ride yet, have you?
3/4 of your commentary team have had a ride.
As Louise Beckett reminds Martin.
I was promised one last year.
You were.
And when it didn't happen, I was promised it definitely would happen this year.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is green. Pit exit is green. This is the start of the 6 Hours of Monza free practice 3 session.
There you go. If you didn't know where you are or what you were doing, and I frequently fall into that category, it's always handy to have a very useful reminder. Final free practice, 60 minutes underway, and yeah, the first car out of the garage, Peugeot. This is going to be very interesting to see what this car is like, and actually for the team as much as anything else, because I mean, you're quite deeply involved with Mercedes-AMG Formula One program in terms of simulation and all of that other stuff. And you're very well aware, as they now are, and as everybody else on the planet is, what the simulators tell you, and what CFD tells you, and what theory tells you, does not always quite translate into practice. For Peugeot, very encouraging that although both cars have had technical issues, the speed appears to be there, and you'd rather fix a fast car than try and make a reliable car quick.
Well, like I said before, the interesting thing now with the hypercar category is that you have to fit those parameters. So you know when you build a car, you know what your targets are. You've got a target of weight, you've got a target of the downforce, you've got a target of the drag, and you've got a target of the power. That actually makes your job a lot easier these days to go racing, and I think that's why, I mean, it can't be a coincidence, can it, guys? Why we're seeing suddenly more manufacturers falling over themselves to come and compete.
It is a truly exciting moment in racing history. You know, we are looking at double figures in this case for next season in the FIA World Endurance Championship. We're looking at close to, on either side, of 20 the following year. That's where we are right now.
We're looking at double figures of people who are building cars for Hypercar. And actually, part of that, we've talked about convergence for 3 years, and convergence is finally with us under the Hypercar umbrella. Le Mans rules cars, LMH, Le Mans Hypercar, and IMSA's take on it, where the manufacturers really wanted a hybrid system, LMDH. Now, an American manufacturer, Cadillac, say, does not have to use an LMDH car, but they want to. But what the convergence has meant is, without LMDH, we wouldn't have Porsche building an LMDH car for the American market and a Le Mans Hypercar to race at Le Mans. We might not have half a dozen of the manufacturers that are building cars or have announced that they're building cars. So having that global platform, that's first. When Group C came, there was no equivalent across the Atlantic in IMSA. IMSA Camel GTP came along, and the rule set that worked with Group C was nominally changed for GTP, and it sort of came along, and that allowed Porsches and so on to be raced on both sides of the Atlantic. This time, from the outset, if you build it, you can race it anywhere, and that is the big thing. And again, in the GT categories, we talked about this as well. When we go GT3 in 2 years, you can buy a GT3 car from the manufacturer of your choice stroke dreams and race it anywhere you can get an entry, safe in the knowledge that you won't have to buy another kit of parts to suit that championship, and another kit of parts to suit that race, and another kit of parts to suit that race. It will work.
And that's the other major difference with this reinvention of the top class of sports car racing. It is a combination of the huge international companies. There's Carlos Tavares in the middle there with the white headphones on. We'll talk about Carlos in a short while, because he's a hugely significant person in this revolution, and that's what it is. You've got the smaller organisations. Glickenhaus is a great example of that, who's looked at that rule book and found a way to access this level of racing with what they can bring to the party. And then you've got the third level, which are the customer teams. Jota, the first to actually reveal their programme. Congratulations to David Clark and Sam Hickman and Nebula Jota with what is going to be Hertz Team Jota next season, a fully funded, blue-chip company sponsored effort in the FIA World Endurance Championship with a Porsche.
And that's what Hertz Porsche Team Jota. It's not going to be an LMP2 car any longer. They are going to be fighting for overall victory in WEC and Le Mans.
And it's the layers, it's those layers that matter here, because it's allowing people who've got that passion, who've got that will, who've got a business objective to find a way in to what will be a platform that is absolutely guaranteed to lift its profile immeasurably from where we are. It's already one of the biggest world championships in world motorsports. It's going to lift off with the additional push that's going to get behind it from the drivers that are going to come, from the manufacturers that are going to come, from the sponsors that are going to come, and it's a whole new world.
And
I'm beyond excited.
The new teams that I guess, and actually, had the top class not changed, just the changes in GT, going from GT to GT3 and bringing in potentially people racing Mercedes and Audi and Lamborghini and McLaren and a whole bunch of other cars that we don't see in GTE, Corvette and so on, are also available. That alone would be reason enough to get excited. That and a brand new hyperclass, which on its own would be reason enough to get excited. And then the advent of a new rule set 2 years on from now for LMP2 as well, to completely recalibrate LMP2. I mean, just... It's everything, you know. It's an exterior restoration, it's an interior restoration, it's a complete refit, it's everything all at once. All of these separate elements would be enough to get excited.
And that's the point, as we were again discussing earlier in the weekend. It's 3 consecutive years of seismic change. 1, the tsunami that's going to be coming in Hypercar over the next 2 years. 2 is the changed GT3 platform for the GTs, and 3 is LMP2 Part 2, if you like, with the new chassis coming and with whatever that's going to be, and we will get more information on that in the months to come. But 3 years to completely transform what we're currently looking at.
It will be a greater revolution than Group C brought to endurance racing.
I completely agree.
And that is the one that everybody kind of highlights as where it came out of a massive doldrums and suddenly became a bona fide, exciting, really, really prestigious championship to win. And part of that is why other manufacturers are looking at it as well, because of the prestigious names that are already known to be coming. Other big names go, okay, we need to be looking at that then. When you've got Ferrari and Porsche going head-to-head to just those 2 names alone, with no disrespect to Peugeot or Glickenhaus or Toyota or anybody else, when you've got 2 absolute giants of endurance racing going head-to-head to win Le Mans, everybody else takes notice. And when those programs are announced, you know, when Porsche confirmed they're going to do it, when, you know, and in that time frame, Audi were going to be there as well, aren't now, it seems. When Ferrari then green light that, and you go, okay, boy, okay, everybody else is going, okay, we need a bit of this action, because the prestige of the championship then that you're competing in is elevated, and as we all know, a rising tide floats all boats. Everybody who's involved here, from Jim Glickenhaus and his small operation to the world's biggest car manufacturers, they will all be seen in an even more prestigious light.
And it's cyclical, isn't it? You know, you mentioned the Group C days, that came after a lull, and then the same happened again, and we had to wait. Oh, was that Ben Barnico? Oh no, Barnico?
It is Ben Barnico.
Yeah, it was a bit leery the lap before on the exit of the second chicane, and this time on the exit of Lesmo 1, just picks up a bit of gravel, but back on track now, clearly pushing that Porsche to the limits and beyond. But going back to what I was saying, you know,
has he got a puncture?
Right front? No, I think he's just hearing.
I think he's just clearing the stones out of the car.
It's
and you
rally,
do that off track.
Yeah, it's the rally car rattle, isn't it?
It picks up, it scoops up so many stones and bits of gravel when you're there, and you want to do the responsible thing by veering off the racing line and braking to, well, basically save the mechanics an awful lot of work, hoovering up those stones when you come in. Speaking of gravel, car 94 there, who's at the wheel at the moment? It is Menezes, Gustavo Menezes, running wide in Ascari.
Should say, by the way, at this point, 10 minutes in, it is a Peugeot 1-2 in this session.
It is.
Both with 137 zeros.
I tell you what, they're looking a lot better than they were in the previous session, and particularly from yesterday as well. The car looks quick. It looks like it's easier to drive now. They've clearly worked on the setup after FP2. And no, it's impressive, isn't it? They've just come in straight away. I didn't expect this. I didn't even expect them to be anywhere close to Toyota, let alone in front of them at these early stages. I know there's still a long way to go, but even at this stage, I didn't expect them to be P1, P2.
Between sessions, I sat down with a friend and colleague, and we were joined at the table at Peugeot by Jean-Marc Finot and Carlos Tavares. And we were chatting away about this, and, you know, my view, massively impressive. We'd have been impressed if that car was a second off.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying,
But it's not a second
expectation.
off. And what they were then saying is, yeah, but we think Toyota will then take another second. Well, maybe they will, maybe they won't. But here's the point. You are already in the ballpark. And these, by the way, confirmed, these two cars, 200 kilometres each on these cars before they arrived here. Just a shakedown. That's it. That's all they've done.
On these two actual cars.
These two actual
a lot
cars.
more testing.
15,000 kilometres on the test car. This is car 2 and car 3.
Sure. And it makes sense. You don't want to go taking a 15,000 kilometre car that's done all that testing into a race weekend, his first race weekend. So, yeah, they've built 2 new cars effectively to come here and put them through their paces. And look, there's no pressure on the team this weekend, but they'll be loving it. It's so much better. It makes so much more sense to be here at a racetrack racing rather than testing and just going through the motions of a brand new car.
Talked to Jim Glickenhaus earlier in the weekend, and the response, the fan response that they've had to this change the sky blue. This is the same blue as the Glickenhaus badge. I think we're going to see this car continue with this wherever we might see it. So,
it now matches the team shirts, doesn't it? Which is kind of makes sense. Let's get down to Ferrari and hear from James Calado.
James Calado, we can see the 51 behind you. The team are working hard. What's going on?
Yeah, we changed the intercooler after FP2 to see if we could reduce some temperature, because basically it's overheating. And we found a leak in this new one, so I think we're going to go back to the other one and hopefully get out for the rest of the session.
And the temperatures are only going to get hotter though, so how are you going to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Sebring. We struggled with temperature. Our Ferrari doesn't like the hot conditions, so we're trying to do everything we can to cool it down. But let's see, I mean, if we can put back the old one, and just try and get some laps in, ready for quali, then that would be a bonus. But let's see.
Okay, thank you.
It's not encouraging, is it?
Well, you don't like to lose any time in free practice for something that you can't fix. That's a bit of an issue, you know.
Sounds like a fundamental design, not flaw, but weakness. In that Ferrari, that it can't cope with the extreme temperatures.
Louise Beckett, you have more.
Well, all season they've always said, we want rain, we can't wait for rain. James has said it to me numerous times.
Yeah. And they were lucky that they got that in Spa, didn't they?
They've been very lucky.
And that's what equalised the balance and gave them the opportunity to win. But it wasn't the case at Le Mans. And of course, the season finishes in the heat of Bahrain, where James and Alessandro Pierguidi won the World Championship title last year. That, by the way, is why they have the rainbow stripes on their windscreen. That's a cycling deal. The World Champion has the rainbow stripes. I always thought the five Olympic ring colours should have been the Olympic champion, but it is the World Champion. So Peugeot there stacked in the pit lane. And again, Anthony, we talked about the fact that this is a test team that is showing up for their first ever race.
Yeah.
And, you know, those sorts of things are going to be part of the game, and they need to anticipate how that's going to work.
You know, we were doing the rounds yesterday, walking up and down the pit lane, the paddock, and just checking out the lie of the land. And I noticed that, Peugeot are right slap bang in the middle of everyone. And you can see here that how it compromises if a car runs a bit too deep. So Toyota at complete other end of the pit lane. They had free rein in front of them. Yep. They got all the free space in front, but Peugeot are right in the thick of it. And that was a good example there of how they couldn't even wheel the car in on the jacks into position because the Porsche behind them had just ran on a little bit too far.
you noticed in this pit lane is many of the cars are coming in on the diagonal when they're sitting there before the start of the practice sessions because of that lack of space.
We had the same last weekend with more cars in this pit lane for LMS.
Yeah.
Very crowded. And I think what you're going to see as a result of that, if we do get into a caution period and it's within the windows, that's when we're going to start to see some of these cars just move away from each other on strategy.
Watching Robert Kubica here in the Prema Olen car. Now, an interesting, I think you brought it up in FP2 actually, Graham, where last weekend in the ELMS,
yes,
Habsburg coming into the pits. Remind us what happened.
So he was penalised, 10 seconds added to the race time for that car, the other car in the ELMS, which cost them 2 positions, cost them a podium position, but it was for excessive braking coming into pit lane.
I found out why that happened.
Go.
He was driving the Prema car.
Yes.
That car and the steering wheel configuration is designed for poor old Robert Kubica's hand situation, right? You know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
So Habsburg, who drives in the WEC, is a regular in the WEC, or WRT, the conventional steering wheel layout in an LMP2 car, used to where the pit lane speed limit button is.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
As the 86 runs wide there. So Habsburg coming into the pits in the Prema car, designed for Robert Kubica.
Hits the pit lane speed limit button,
which he thought was a pit lane speed limit button. It wasn't. It turns out it was the kill switch. Turned the car off. He had to then bump start the car to get it going again. That caused a bit of a chain reaction with the cars behind him. That's what happened.
Right. Okay.
So it wasn't his fault. Well, I mean, it was. He pressed the wrong button, but it's that learned mechanism.
It wasn't a deliberate,
it wasn't malicious. It wasn't a brake test.
2 cars straight on at turn 1. That's the Alpine. And is that the? Oh, it's the Signatech. It's the Signatech formation.
That's how you do it. You don't have to smash through the polystyrene boards or go the other way around them.
Again, when we get the exterior shot, look at the Alpine.
You can desperately hear him trying to downshift, and each downshift it exasperates
it's trying to lock.
Yeah, that locks up the wheels. And that's how you do it. You have to weave your way through, and they're designed to slow you down. You
look at the Alpine and look at the car behind it. That Alpine, which is now a hypercar that was an LMP1 car,
I see what you're saying,
was once an LMP2 car.
Yeah, you can see it, can't you? It's
Ooh.
Same architecture.
Oh dear, oh dear.
And I don't know if it's that Malesi behind. Yeah,
I
don't know if it was just he was put off by what was going on in front of him. It's easily done.
Yeah, and then he drifted over like a quarter of a metre too far, and he had his wheels on the bumpy white line grass. Yeah, there's Loic Duval on the right, Gustavo Menezes on the left-hand side, having a little conflab.
All the rest through the background.
Yeah. Tell who's been working the hardest so far, can't you? With the amount of sweat that Menezes has.
Loic hasn't even got underwear on.
Exactly. Wow.
I mean, he has, but he hasn't got fireproof underwear.
Careful.
At least
Careful.
He may have. I'm not party.
We're not going to get down the Loic Duval going commando quite yet.
Indeed. But he is clearly not expecting to go in the car whatsoever during
in all
this session.
seriousness, now with the new FIA regulations, you can't be wearing your traditional conventional underpants.
No. Well, you can, but they can be underneath your fireproofs.
No, they can't.
You can't at all?
No. It has to be, everything has to be fire retardant.
Okay. But
the underwear, and the underwear stuff.
There's a marketing opportunity for Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
Mikkel Jensen it is that leads this session.
I'm now trying to think of a Calvin Klein and Flames name, and I can't.
Of course, other underwear brands are available.
Yeah.
Twitter, help us now. Let's hear from the WRT team. Let's not. Let's go down to the garage with Luis Beckett. Gustavo Menezes was malingering. Luis is going to settle his hash.
Gustavo Menezes, it's lovely to have you back with us. You've been in WEC paddock for a long time with different teams, but now you're here with Peugeot. You must feel like you're part of something big.
Yeah, obviously it's an honor to be a part of the program, you know, and it's a different feeling being with them from the start. You know, it's been over 18 months now of slow build up and work, and you know, I don't know if you can ever be ready, but at one point it was time to go racing, and you can imagine the drivers, we've been dying to get back out there, so it's an honor and a pleasure to be here in Monza with them, and hopefully we can do something special to start things off.
We were just talking about this pit lane, and it's very crowded, and obviously there was a little bit of an incident there with the Porsche behind. Tell us, you weren't in the car, but you saw what happened.
Yeah. Monza is very tight for the amount of cars we have in this championship. The guys in the garage behind, I mean, it happens, especially in free practice, but they overshot their garage spot by maybe 30 or 40 centimeters into ours, and already you cannot fit the 3 cars. So it's a bit complicated, especially once they're up on the jacks and not on the skates. If that were to happen to another team in the race, you can imagine it could be pretty bad, but it's better that it happens now so we can plan around it.
Qualifying later, what are your team's expectations for this qualifying? Your first qualifying in WEC in Hypercar?
Again, there's expectations, there's what we want, and there's reality. Obviously, everyone wants a pole, you know, but I think being realistic, we've came here with one objective, and it's to continue testing and building for Le Mans 2023. And every good result we can get on that way, it's a successful step and it's a good achievement. But we have to be humble, we have to do our best, and whatever we do, that's our best. I guess we'll see on the scoreboard later on.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's lovely to have Gus back in the championship. You know, he's such an enthusiast, such a fun guy to have around. Really nice to see him back. Graham Goodwin has more.
And wants to press the right button.
Indeed.
He also has one moment in history to celebrate, because he's the first driver to have driven 2 different hypercars in the WEC, because he had one outing for Glickenhaus.
Ooh, very good.
Good knowledge.
Oh.
That's why he's paid the big bucks.
Louise Beckett.
Yes, he was here for the launch last year.
Yes.
And he ended up driving the Glickenhaus, didn't he?
He did indeed. He had to leave the launch early to go and join the track.
Exactly. Yeah, he was changing shirts as he ran, wasn't he? I'd forgotten that little detail. You're exactly right.
But so he's so not only is he driven for the Rebellion LMP1 team.
Yes.
No, he's definitely not driven LMP1 in Alpines, but that's only ever been a hypercar.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first driver. I doubt he's going to be the last to have driven. We'll see tomorrow.
So far, he's not driven GTs, has he, in WEC?
I remember I was at the first test that Gustavo did, which I think was about 16 in Bahrain, with the Orica 03R, the Alpine A450, when he joined the Signatech effort in Alpine.
So he's raced
P2.
LMP2,
yes,
LMP1,
LMP2 pre-17 and post-17 with the Gibson era.
So 2 different LMP2 eras, and LMP1, and Hypercar, and now with a second Hypercar manufacturer.
Correct.
Cool. Gets around, our boy. You know, and that's one of the great things about a championship like this, is that everybody sees what other people are doing and can do. So it's the fact that you start off in a GT car doesn't mean that you are classed forever as a GT driver. Nick Tandy, as you said earlier on,
I think less
classic
so.
Example, but
I think less so nowadays.
Mikkel Jensen, there is.
Well, Mikkel was here last week driving a Ferrari GT.
Yeah.
You know, it's they're going to see a lot more of it. The majority of the Porsche factory drivers are coming from their GT program.
He'll be a good scrap. You know, I haven't talked about the LMP2s much today, and United Autosports with Alex Lynn at the wheel. There's a good little scrap going on here with the WRT behind them.
Alex Lynn last raced here in GP2 in 2016.
Wow. I mean, Alex Lynn's another good example, by the way. LMP2 here, DPI in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. Zero doubt he'll be part of the LMDH setup for Cadillac moving forward. And a Le Mans winner in GT Pro.
And also, another that was a little fact that I was sent by Martin Pass with some little stats about experience of the United drivers here. The first time Felipe Albuquerque drove here was in 2-litre Formula Renault Euro Cup, before teammate Josh Pearson was born.
Good grief.
And I still don't regard Philip as an old driver, but his career is longer than the life of Josh Pearson. Oh, hang on a minute.
I think he might just be trying to find some gap.
Find some gear, does that look like?
No, just trying to open up a gap.
So.
We haven't got a circuit map here, but I should imagine he had a few GTs, or maybe even slower LMP2s in front. They're fast here. You know, they topped the timesheets in FP2. That car 22 did, and you know, super quick here last year as well in that category. So See how the car rides the bumps down in towards the first chicane. Pretty good. He had a lock-up, of course, last lap around into the second chicane. But yeah, a little bit of over-correction there in turn 2. On his way through now, turn 3, Curva Grande, flat out. Easy for one of these cars to navigate their way around that corner. And now to the part of the track where he outbraked himself previous time. He's a 10th down, or just over a 10th down at the end of that first sector. And that's exactly how you want to take it on the exit of the second chicane. Just kiss the gravel, or not quite even.
Wheels are sort of hanging over the gravel there,
over the lip of that curb, but not quite on the gravel. That is absolutely perfect. And yeah, much better lap this time around than previous.
And you're right about the traffic, by the way, because in Ascari right now are 3 different GTE AM cars.
It doesn't often work out that way when you try and find a gap in WEC, because you've got cars coming in and out of the pits all the time. There's so many cars on track that you often just end up tripping over somebody anyway. But he's actually made that work for him. It won't be an issue in qualifying, of course, because unlike Le Mans, the 2 categories are split into the 2. So you get the GTs and the prototypes. So you have the Hypercars and the LMP2s out together, and all of the GT cars out together as well. And that just relieves the pressure on the drivers to try and find a gap. And yeah, there's less compromise. So what's it going to be as he crosses the
6th
line?
in class. That's where he is forecast to be.
Not their fastest lap, of course, on the older tyres by this stage in proceedings, but the car looks good to me. It's got a nice balance. And yeah, here's a great slow-mo shot of the exit of the Ascari chicane. Just, you want to get the curb, the front left tyre just on the curb there, on the red, white and green painted part, but not the elevated part. It just hooks the car up as there's that small dip before the curb starts to rise up, and then use a lot of that exit curb there for good measure. And yeah, perfectly positioned that time around.
Slow 92 Porsche in the GTE class. Kevin Est only just into the car.
You can see his eyes were everywhere, looking in the mirrors, and this is why he's still recovering from this moment here.
Well, now we talked in FP2 about the escape road. That's the escape road. That was a perfect example of he's gone for the middle pedal and there was nobody home.
Textbook. Eduardo Freitas, the race director, will be very pleased with what just happened there.
Should add, by the way, if you were listening to the countdown into this session and recognised, rather didn't recognise the voice counting down, that is our assistant race director, our race director for the LMS last week. There's the Bahraini Fires Ramsey Fires, who he'll be a familiar name, face and voice moving forward in international sports car racing. As things stand at the moment, Eduardo Freitas will be in charge for the remaining 3 races for the WEC and for the final ELMS race alongside his F1 duties, but increasingly we're going to be seeing more of our Bahraini friend.
I know we've got the graphic at the top of the screen, but just for the note for the teams, just a little on the onboard camera, just a little car number would be good.
Yeah.
Just on the right hand side, I can see a bit of carbon there. Just a little 51 would be all we need.
On that dash,
the fans
inside
back
the
at
windscreen.
home. Yeah.
You got the AF Corsa sticker. We know who it is because it's a Ferrari, but yeah, a number would be down. Yeah, and for the fans back home, and actually sometimes, because of the way the light is, it is a little hard to read that upper number.
Indeed.
This is great. Under the old banking we go there with the Goodyear sign on, and then it rises up. Sun's in your eyes momentarily. Is it bumpy into Ascari chicane? Grab a lot of that curb on the left-hand side to help open up the right, and then keep it flat. You can see the graphic on the right-hand side of your screen there in green, flat out through that final left. You've got a Peugeot overtaking us on the left-hand side. Driver would have been staying right, eyes to the left in the mirrors. Now feed the car back to the left-hand side, brake and down through the gears into third. A little bit early there on the curb, and it sent the car a little bit wide. Keep it within track limits. See that white line? You're okay, and as long as not one part of your right-hand tyres are touching it. And now the LMP2 on the right-hand side overtakes us, the Inter-Europol car. And that is the life of a GT driver. Eyes on stalks, both in front to the braking marker boards on the left-hand side and in the mirrors as well. What a compromise that is. And that's why I love the racing in the World Endurance Championship, because it pulls on so many strings of requirements of the driver's skill sets to survive, mainly, and to stay fast at all times, despite being overtaken or being the one that's overtaking slower cars. It's just, you know, you're battling so much more in many ways.
There is literally never a dull moment.
There's never a dull moment, yeah. And it's pure. It's absolutely pure racing, but 3 different categories out there.
That was Alessandro Pierguidi, by the way, in the Ferrari we were riding with while we were being warned about track limits. But this is number 8 Toyota. Who's this? Buemi?
It is
Ria Hirakawa.
Watch this.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it looks worse from the outside than it looks on the inside. But
I bet it felt a lot worse than it sounded. Ooh.
Very rapid lap underway at the moment from Romain Dumas. Been lagging down the timing order. 11th overall, 6th quickest of the 6 hypercars, but this is a quick lap. He's about half a second inside the fastest time overall.
I would say it's a new set of tyres as well, because those gold rims are very shiny.
1:37.1. So what we've got at the moment is top 3. Well, top 2 are but still both the Peugeots, separated by under a tenth of a second.
65 thousandths.
Yep. Yeah. It's a tenth and a half between the top 3. It is almost 3/10 the top 4. It is just over half a second for the top 5. Of the top 6 with the Alpine, it is 0.624 of a second across the Hypercar 6/10.
It's pretty impressive, isn't it, when you see that? So many cars all separated by 6/10.
Look how close he is to those little ripples on the inside, just not riding up that curb, but ditch hooking. And there's so much at Monza where you can drop the inside wheels into a little rain gully and just use them, or as the guys say,
the next one.
Into a Ascari in the middle. Sometimes in a GT car, hook the inside wheels inside the big sausage curb to help you rotate the nose in a Ascari.
Well, we're talking about these kind of multidisciplinary drivers. Well, there's the one, isn't it? Romain Dumas.
This is what it looks like at full speed.
Absolutely.
Slow-mo. It's a blink of an eye and you missed it.
And by the way, quicker again, and much quicker again this time. And this does look like he's going to get this car to the top of timing and scoring.
Oh, he's
but
desperately flashing. Please, no! You've just compromised my line going into the final corner.
Look at the gaps. The first sector and the second sector are both nearly 3/4 of a second up.
But he knew what could have been. He's flashing the front. All you need to do is just please move out to the right-hand side and just give me the run, the run in. But
hill to the top. 1:36.813.
Could have been more though.
It could. 2/10 up on the quicker of the 2 Peugeots.
He was definitely compromised at least 2/10 in that final corner from what happened. But you know, the Ferrari didn't have to get out of the way. The Iron Dames car, it didn't have to get out of the way, but it's just, you know, the flash was there. Yeah, we're going to see him over. So look, he's weaving, and she thought about it.
She tried to move right, but by that time
he was going right.
And this goes way back to a monster Jochen Mass accident at Brands Hatch many, many years ago, and getting on the PA afterwards to say, guys, if you're in a slower car, for God's sake, stay on the racing line. Then we know where you're going. As soon as the driver comes off the racing line, you've got no clue.
By the way, the other thing to say about that is she was on a quick lap.
Yes.
She finished that lap just over a tenth off her quickest time, so they, I think, might have been on the qualifying sim as well.
I was just reading it as if I was in the car. That's your thought process. It's like, please get out of my way, get out of my way. You're going to ruin my lap. But you know what? She doesn't have to.
No,
she's on a lap 2. Everybody owns the same racetrack, and you know you all deserve to be there and use every bit of that racetrack. It's not a race; it's free practice. Here, she's entitled to stay.
Because of all the cars, you have to drive to survive. Yes, don't you? I mean, this is actually drive to survive. F1 isn't really so much. It's more about swimming in the shark pool.
Top of GT Pro at the moment, the Nutless at Le Mans.
Wow, look
Corvette.
at that.
That was a clatter, wasn't it? I was just about to say that looked very Tandy-like. It is indeed Nick Tandy.
Oh, was it Nick Tandy? Yeah, you know him well.
Absolutely. Go on.
There we go again. Look at that.
Yes.
The car can take it though.
Oh yeah.
It has to.
You know what we hear a lot about in GT racing is that the drivers aren't really pushing to their maximum. They avoid the curbs for the sake of BOP, and that makes it much harder to judge. And when it comes to race day, they start miraculously using the curbs from out of nowhere, and they go much faster. But he's certainly pushing 100% there. You can't say he's backing out of those curbs in any way.
He's struggling here. That's it's the formation line down.
Like I've always said, when the race drivers are busy, the mechanics...
Oh, bless your hearts.
It's a very zen moment going on there.
Bless you, we love you dearly. Isn't it great to have Corvette racing here?
Yeah.
I mean, every time they come here, as Louise just said in my ears, that of course the jet lag for the Americans that come over to Europe to race within the Corvette team, it hits them hard, and especially this way. You know, when you come, it'll be like us when we go to Fuji. It hits you hard those days, 8 hours or so.
Going east really hurts.
It's savage,
really
isn't
hurts.
it? So
you know, for them it's a 5-hour time difference, but that's enough.
It's enough.
That is. I can remember racing in ALMS, and Bill Adam, the colour guy, lived in Florida. When we were racing on the West Coast, it's a 2-hour time difference. He was wrecked. He was in a much worse state than I was coming from the UK.
His daughter's much better at that.
But I mean, and it's actually hard to sort of overstate what a fatiguing effect it can have, which is why it's sort of quite good for them that Le Mans is now almost a fortnight, and by the time they get to the race itself after the test weekend, they'll have been there for nearly 2 weeks. All right, they're absolutely run ragged, but at least they're on the right time zone. Yeah. So there's that and there's that. Here we go, 92 Porsche of Kevin Est, right behind the 56, 56, 57,
the 46. We should, by the way, since this is likely to be the first session that actually gets seen externally to the circuit, say get well soon and be back with us soon to Richard Leitz.
Yeah.
Richie not here after a 55 race run of WEC races. Unfortunately, a positive COVID test, I believe symptoms too for Richard. We do miss you, mate, and do come back and rejoin us as soon as you possibly can. Replaced here by Fred Makiewicz.
Consistent Porsche drivers, keeping his consistency up, is Christian Reed.
Yes.
Hasn't yet started the race, but is here and is driving and will be expected to start the race. Has started every WEC race so far.
He has indeed.
Unfortunately, it's going to be more of a common occurrence, isn't it? With drivers missing races due to COVID.
Quite possible.
Quite
possible.
It's not going anywhere, but it's a shame that he can't be here with us. But it's, you know, he's raced at the most important race of them all at Le Mans this year. But for the sake of the championship, it could be a deciding factor for some drivers, whether you win the championship or not. And if you miss a race, it doesn't mean that your immediate car crew won't go on and win the championship without you, because they can. It's just that you won't. So they might pick up the trophy for first place. If you've missed a race,
you can't.
You go there to the FIA Gala and you pick up your second place trophy.
Or third, or fourth, or nothing.
You realise Richie's is watching this at the moment. He's going, all right. No.
Well, what I'm saying is that he probably won't be alone this year. You know,
no, I think
it's a common occurrence these days. I'm not surprised to hear it.
A number of races over the last 2 or 3 years, and it is gutting from the concern.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's going to be with us for a while yet. It's something that teams have learned to live with, and in the case of Richie, it was on the phone to Fred Makiewicz asking if he was available. I suspect he was in the car before the call finished.
When we went racing under lockdown, essentially, it was a bit of a sin almost, wasn't it, to say, oh, I've got COVID, and I'm really sorry, I won't be able to race this weekend, and everyone around me is isolating. It was horrible. It's so much pressure on all the drivers and teams to live with that.
The COVID blame game was never a big thing in motorsport. It was in the wider society, but I think we learned very quickly you've got to move away from that. It is what it is.
You say it wasn't a big thing, but it was a thing.
Oh yes,
it definitely was a thing, but it's not anymore, because it's life now, isn't it? And so you know,
there's barely a household that hasn't gone through this, so and it has an impact. Whatever you do for it.
If I was racing still this year, I would have missed a race or two. I had it in April. Got hit by it pretty badly, but that's just the way it is. And
that's one of the 2 Jota cars.
It is. I blame Antonio Felix da Costa. What did he do wrong? Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
It's got an 8 at the end of the number, I can tell you that
Yeah.
much.
Well, both Peugeots have a 9 in them. We talked about this in FP2, didn't we? That going to the Peugeot team yesterday saying, how are we going to tell the two cars apart? And they sort of looked slightly bemused and went, because they have different numbers. Yeah, okay. Yeah. We're lazy. We need to be spoon-fed. Also, old eyes.
Yes.
Well, in F1, sorry to keep going on about it, you have the roll hoop camera. And one car has the bright yellow to signify the difference, and the other one is black, just carbon fibre. And it's your responsibility then as the commentator to learn which driver has which roll hoop cam colour. But we don't really even have anything to go by apart from a number that's horizontal on the front of the car. Oh, well, I love it. I love this topic.
Well, you know, for which, thank you very much indeed to Iron Lynx for having a very different coloured selection of cars.
We love Iron Lynx.
Bright pink,
it's our favourite,
bright yellow.
Yeah, favourite team on the grid.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Go Iron Lynx.
Well, and again, you know, Dempsey Proton, when they had two similarly liveried cars with that black and grey disruptive pattern, one was blue-hued at the rear and the other one was green-hued. So you always knew from front or back or side, without looking for a number, which car was which. And actually, although we whinge on about it because we've got the form of having a microphone, it is part of our job to be able to tell the difference.
Yep.
But as the fans, it's not part of their job to be able to tell the difference. And you would think that the teams would like the fans to know which car is which.
I got a penalty last year at Spa. Black and white flag.
What, for whinging on about?
Should have been. No, so I got a black and white flag for something I didn't do.
I'd be permanently in the steward's office.
It was the sister car that I think hit the Alpine going into Eau Rouge, and I was the one that got the penalty. I said, what's that all about? Why did I get the penalty?
And last year we could tell the two
you
apart.
You could tell the difference.
Here you go, here's the Dempsey Proton disruptive pattern. You know, World War I dreadnought battleship kind of disruptive pattern. It's a great looking livery. I have no idea who came up with it, who thought up that livery, but you know,
it's become part of their DNA, hasn't it?
It's instantly identifiable. You know immediately it's a Dempsey Proton car, and that's what a livery is all about. Somebody the other day started a sort of Twitter feed yesterday actually about, you know, best looking silhouette of a car. For me, it's and it was the XJR, whatever it was, 15, 16, the turbocharged IMSA Jag, which was
16.
even more low, 16, even more low line than the normal Jags, and it had Bud Light colours. And somebody said, "Oh goodness me." When you got, you know, alcohol companies and cigarette companies involved, the liveries were astonishing, and some of them really were. But that's because they hired really good livery designers to make them not visible, but to make them yell at you from the screen. You know, look at white with red and blue stripes, martini colours. They leap out at you. This livery is, you're never going to go, oh, is that I don't know what that is. You will always know what it is. The Glickenhaus. It is the fastest car on track at the moment, but the fastest driver in the Glickenhaus is not in it. He's in the pit lane, being buttonholed by Louise Beckett.
Romain Dumas, just coming in from your run, you put in some great sector times, lots of purples flashing up for you in that run.
Well, yes, so far, I mean, it's running good. We will see, I mean, we try our best, and let's see what qualify will bring. For sure, the car is not bad. I mean, we have a good balance. The good point is everybody is very, very close. So we can see the Peugeot is already really fast. So let's see what will happen. I'm sure they still have a lot of margin compared to last year. We can see the lap time was faster last year. So we are pushing in our best, and we will see.
How does this mix things up for you?
Everything is running good. I mean, we had no issue with the car. I mean, my teammate's very nice guy. We enjoy. We had a lot of fun. But actually, you know, we see we are very close in some race. So for sure, we would like to be on a podium or even more, you know. So we try our best. We try to put everything together. For sure, it's not easy, but you know, it's the level is high, so it's normal that it's not easy. So we will try.
And coming off the back of Le Mans, what do you take away from that? Because for me, I thought the Glickenhaus were steady and got all the way through and put in a great performance.
Well, at the end of the day, for sure, Le Mans was for the team incredible good, but last year was also very good. I mean, it's not so many races that it's not good, you know? So, you know, funny thing is, I think last year when we started, everybody was thinking we were a little bit, we were a joke a little bit, but actually we always impress people, and we continue in our way. But right now, we are close. For sure, we are not with a big guy, but we are really close.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Slightly odd. Well, Roman was talking about, and as you were just pointing out off air, that the car was quicker last year. Well, in FP3, it most certainly wasn't. Oh, look at that brake dust again. It's been an area that the car's been struggling with.
Well, it sort of takes you back to their early races. I'm thinking Portimao, where they had gearbox problems, but also massive brake problems.
Yeah,
but
it's not something they've had this year at all.
No, haven't seen that amount of brake dust.
I would say the car was a couple of tenths quicker in qualifying here last year. There are 2 cars here last year, remember?
Well, maybe that's what he's talking about.
Yeah, but it's not like for like, is it?
Maybe he just felt overall lap time was bigger. Actually, on the subject of Roman, as a man who's 44 years young, he could have the common decency to look like he'd been working hard. There was not a bead of sweat. Louise Beckett, did you mop him down before you talked to him?
No, but funny enough, we were having a conversation because he's nursing his elbow, and I'm like, are you okay when it's just old age, Louise?
Well, he always has been a bit of an elbows-out driver. We're going to say that.
Very good.
I was going to say, we talked about this multidisciplinary thing, and here's the Glickenhaus with the Peugeot.
He said we see how fast the Peugeot is, but they're catching it. They're topping the timesheets and they're catching the Peugeot. So, and they're on older tyres by this point as well, so you can see how long they've been out there. Remember the slow-mo we saw with the shiny gold wheels, where they're not very shiny anymore. So,
well, I'll tell you what, though, the Peugeot was quicker through Ascari, though.
Well, in Ascari, it's a higher speed chicane. I would expect some turbulence to come into play. Okay. It does look like a very slippery car, of course, that Peugeot without a rear wing, of course, but it's...
Pipo there was benefiting a little bit from the
faster in a straight line.
Faster in a straight line.
He clicked up 301 kilometres now. They're 303, 312, 317.
Oh, no.
Yes. No. Lay down a marker.
Yeah, but there was no need for that in a free practice session.
Lay down a marker. Squeeze him. Welcome to the Piranhas pool.
Yeah. So Pipo Derani, by the way, with his
sleeves rolled up.
Yeah. Well, he's announced this week that they're expecting their first child, and that's brilliant news due in December. So congratulations to the Deranis. Pipo-powered moment. Pipo-powered car. Pipo-powered driver.
Yeah, I don't think that Di Resta was thinking to overtake the Porsche in front of him, but that was a definite attempt to discourage, shall I say, the Glickenhaus of Derani to come down the inside. I like it. Start as you mean to go on.
Yeah.
But I mean, to the line, it was to the line, but it's only a practice session. What's going to happen in the race?
Well, hello, and this is just the arrival of Peugeot.
Yeah.
We've got big hitters. We've got Babe Ruths warming up in the bullpen. We have got lots of big hitters coming. This is going to be so spicy.
It's welcome to the new look FIWC. Let's open the sack and put the ferrets in.
Indeed, yes. So what? And this is kind of what Hypercar was designed.
Yes.
Is to bring in all these different, disparate ways of here's the answer. Go away and work out your own question and show you're working in the margin. There are these answers that you must attain. How you do it, we don't care how you do it.
It's
brilliant.
I think it's very simple. We can get tied in to the nitty-gritty, the technical regulations, balance performance, blah, 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 blah. Or we can enjoy the racing. And for me, every time, once we've got through this growth spurts, we're going to be talking about the racing.
You know the way I look at BOP?
Yep.
Everybody plays a game.
Yes.
So BOP, you got the police who are monitoring it, the FIA and the ACO. They can see all of the power and the weight of the cars. They can see the body shapes. They've got laser scanners available, so they can scan the bodywork, check it with the CAD that they have of that car as the Toyota goes straight on there. The second chicane, no mark on there. So you got the police looking at it, monitoring it. And the teams kind of mess that up, really, by playing games. Sandbagging goes on. It's natural. Like I said, the GT drivers are at it as well by not taking curbs, but pushing elsewhere. There's some curbs being taken. But if all of that's going on, then you're playing a game.
Yep.
may the best team and driver combination win at that game.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, no,
and this weekend, maybe Glickenhaus are playing that game the best, and, well, congratulations, you win the race.
Can you imagine how cock-a-hoop Jim Glickenhaus would be if they ended up winning tomorrow's race? If they ended up winning the 6 Hours of Monza, their first win in World Endurance Championship, their first win in Hypercar, and with new, proven big hitters, Le Mans winners, World Championship winners, joining the field. I mean,
I feel like it's brewing. Since the start of this year, I feel like that time is coming.
Yeah.
And they had a fantastic Le Mans. And they beat Alpine.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
You know, he talked about porpoising and bouncing has been a hot topic this
that's
year.
The little bumps there, isn't it? The ripples into the braking zones that you don't even know are there when you're walking, but when you're doing 170 miles an hour, you sure know about them.
Felix da Costa getting all mixed up there in the Ascari chicane.
Well, it's as you were saying,
Or whoever's in the 38 car.
I know it wasn't actually. I saw the 28. It's just a force of habit. At some point, I got a 61 chance of being right.
Yes. If we just keep saying Antonio Felix da Costa, I said that at the beginning of the season. I said, if you don't fix it, we will blame you any time a Jota car makes a mistake.
I like this game. Yeah,
me too.
but actually, it's a good moment to talk about. We're talking about the growing competition for Hypercar and the prospects here for Peugeot and for Tota and for Glickenhaus and for Alpine. And there's another of those resets with the conversation with the rule makers and the police, for that matter, of those rule makers in the last couple of days, that you see a car like this. This is a absolutely standard Orica 07 Gibson LMP2 car. We have 9 of them in this race. No, we've not. We've got more than
15.
14 of them in this race. And yet, with that absolutely standard package, with standard tyres, they're at different speeds throughout this race.
Everything available to everybody. And that's... Oof.
Oh!
But that's one of the Peugeot drivers having a big lock-up.
But here's the thing.
1 in 6 chance of getting the right name. And another.
Another.
They do seem to be strong. I mean, I know that was an attempted overtaking move, but they do seem to lock up incredibly easily, don't they?
Yeah.
We haven't seen that from either Toyota or the Glickenhaus.
It was an avoidance.
Yeah.
And then people at home are going to be going, well, it hasn't got a rear wing, so obviously hasn't got as good aerodynamics. Well, no, the deal with Hypercar is there is a maximum downforce and also a minimum downforce level which the car must achieve in the wind tunnel to be homologated, as well as a maximum drag factor and a minimum drag factor that it must achieve.
Doesn't matter whether you do it via wings or ground effects, it doesn't
or
you can do what you
oofle
want.
dust and witchcraft, it doesn't matter, it doesn't have to be visible.
Yeah.
Also things like the air blow-off gaps over the front wheels used to be mandatory, are no longer mandatory, not because they don't care about the safety, but because if you can prove that you're bleeding the air if the car gets sideways or the nose up attitude happens in a different way that is equally safe, fine. You don't have to have that.
And the drag is a separate parameter as well,
Yes.
a plus and minus window.
Yeah.
And just because the car doesn't have a rear wing doesn't mean it's less draggy. It fits the same drag coefficient as the Toyota and the Glickenhaus.
You can drag around a barn door as long as it doesn't exceed the downforce or drag parameters.
And all of those parameters are very narrow. The window they've got to be in for all the parameters you just talked about are very narrow. To go back to the point then, is something is making those cars faster and slower in LMP2.
Yes.
And it's the talent of the drivers and it's the talent of the teams.
Exactly.
And it's exactly the same principle in Hypercar.
Yep.
You arrive with, albeit they look different, sound different, reach the values in very different ways, with a car that technically is designed to those performance parameters to the ideal that those cars can achieve.
Yep.
It's then down to the teams as to how close to the ideal they can get.
Look how tight this was. Did they actually touch? I don't think they did.
Yes.
Touch.
Yeah, a little rub as he went through there, I think.
Let's see, this is riding on board
Watch
the
the
Ferrari.
hands.
Oh, yeah. Very little
I think there was
he
a
could
little
do.
bobble there, just a tiniest little rub.
Very little he could do. Is that the same car there?
Was that
I'm looking to the
Alessandro
right
Pierguidi?
side.
I think so. I think it was Alessandro
We'll
Pierguidi.
have to get Louise down in the pit lane to check that right-hand side of the Ferrari, see if there's any telltale signs, and the Peugeot as well, the left-hand side of the Peugeot. I don't know, maybe they skillfully avoided it or luckily avoided it. But either way, that was a bit of a drift out, wasn't it, from whoever it was in the Peugeot.
It's James Collado now in the Ferrari.
But
we saw
more,
Alessandro in the garage.
There was no more the Ferrari could have done to avoid. No. So it was more, I think, the Peugeot coming drifting over.
And again, the basic rules are very straightforward. If you're in a fast car, it is your job to make a safe pass. It is not the job of the guy in the slower car to make it safe for you.
Well, that was a rough ride, wasn't it? There,
wasn't it?
Is that Kobayashi?
Was that the start of a quali sim lap? Did he just blow that on the very first application of the brakes?
And I don't know, but you know, I love this track for all those reasons.
You've
got the gravel, you've got these massive curves and the bumps, it's such high speed. It's going to bite you if you get it wrong.
It's such an easy track. There are basically like 6 corners, but the detail that makes the difference is
pressure,
enormous.
It's the pressure of knowing how close the lap times are going to be between yourself and your teammates or other cars that you're fighting. You know that you've only got 6 chances to maximise that time. So the pressure you feel on your shoulders to do that is immense, and it means that mistakes can happen easier. Quite often the fastest way around this track is just to not make any mistakes, and you end up with a very decent lap time.
In theory, strictly, there are 11 named corners. However, the first chicane, which we take as a corner, is effectively 2. The Rogia is effectively 2, and the Ascari is effectively 3. But it's a chicane, so you don't really count it. So you've got.
I'd say there are 10 moments where you can make or lose time. But the Ascari chicane is kind of it's intertwined. It's if you get the beginning right,
it's all one.
Then the last left is flat.
Yeah.
In pretty much anything you drive.
You almost always have to compromise that first left, because the middle element, the right-hander, sets you up for the run down to the Parabolica, to Curvo Alboreto.
They're not confident on the brakes, are they, the Peugeot? We can hear from Jose Maria Lopez now with Louise down in the pit lane.
Jose, very relaxed right now, which is great. You're not having to be in the car. The timesheets are changing with now new manufacturers coming in as well. It must be so good for you guys to see that and to feel like, right, the competition is coming to us now.
Hello everyone. Yeah, definitely. It's what we want, you know, competition. Competition always push to improve, to be better. And it's the beginning of, I think, a new era, and more manufacturers to come. So yeah, it's nice for sure. It's tougher now, and we really need to work and see what happens. But definitely something that we all be waiting for, you know.
I don't know if you saw it because you were coming for the interview, but the number 7 just had quite a moment out there with the curves. What is it about this circuit that's creating those moments?
Well, I mean, we are pushing and finding the limits. You know, it's quite hot, so that makes tire temps going very high, and it's challenging. We've been fighting quite a lot the car. I mean, you know, together with the BOP changes, we need to find the edge, and now is the time to do it, you know. So the important thing is tomorrow, but I guess, you know, we need to work. We haven't been feeling very comfortable on driving, let's say, but we are very close from the others as well, so we're not far. We need to keep trying to find a little bit more.
I can imagine the Peugeots are definitely going to want pole later today in qualifying, like the first race here. So what are you going to do to stop them?
Sorry, excuse me.
What are you going to do to make sure that you are the guys on top?
I don't know. We need to work, and I think on race pace we look quite similar, but so far in quali, I think the Glickenhaus looks a little bit better than the rest of us. I think with Peugeot we're close, but we'll see, you know. It will depend also. You never know how much fuel load the rest has, you know. It will be interesting to see. It's the first quali with more cars, and looking forward to that.
So are we. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I guess that's the only way they can really hide their pace these days. I mean, sandbagging goes on all the time. It's not unique to sports car racing. It's not unique to balance of performance racing. We see it in other categories all around the world. But yeah, I guess the fuel load is really the only thing that they can play with now to try to hide genuine pace in their cars. So it's interesting that Jose mentioned that. But I would agree with him that the Glickenhaus, I know they mentioned that Peugeot are looking strong and fast, but I think in qualifying, when we saw that car go out there on the new tyres with Dumas driving, I think
it looked convincing.
It did look convincing.
Gets a clear lap.
Yeah.
It's going to take something to stop.
There was like you said, there was another 2/10 in that lap time, don't forget.
I think more. I think there's potentially 2 to 4 tenths.
Well, just from what I saw from the traffic.
Yeah,
so that was guaranteed 2 tenths.
There's Jim Glickenhaus, trademark.
And who was on pole in Spa?
Don't ask me to remember things that happened more than 3 hours ago.
First ever World Endurance Championship pole by an American car.
Indeed it was.
So, on long, fast tracks, and Spa is definitely a long, fast track, these guys had plenty of speed.
Yeah.
Now, everybody always sort of thinks that everybody else has got maybe a little more than they're showing, and that sort of maybe is the mindset where you know that you've got a little bit more than you're showing, and you suspect everybody else is playing the same game.
Jose didn't sound too downbeat, did he?
No.
And definitely stressed the fact that they look like they've got a strong race car, in terms of pace at least.
Which actually is the only thing that matters.
Checker flag. By the way, just a few moments ago, fastest time in GTM went to Nick Cassidy in the 54F Corsa car. That's with a 1:47.676, just about 4 tenths off the slowest of the Pro cars, which is the number 91 car.
Almost every single car in the field has now taken the checkered flag. There are just 4 remaining to cross the line.
I wanted to see if the Glickenhaus did a repeat of what it did a few laps before it actually get down the inside of the Peugeot towards the first corner. And that will be on this type of racetrack. If that's where your strength is straight line speed. If it's going to benefit you anywhere, it'll be here at Monza.
You can see how aggressive the drivers were there through Ascari in traffic. This is the in-lap for these cars, don't forget, and yet they're still pushing with everything they've got, because at every single second you spend on track, you are learning something, even if it's how deep you can go without it getting into the gravel.
You want to come in as well, don't forget, with your tyre temperatures and your brake temperatures as representative as you can at high speed. So you're encouraged to carry on with the speed quite often, to come into the pit so they can immediately measure different angles on your tyres from inside shoulder to outside shoulder to see how the temperatures vary, and also your brake temps as well. But it's just also on top of that, you're always limited on time. Don't forget, you've got 3 drivers in the LMP2 and Hypercar category. I know there's only 2 in the GTs, but you're very limited in driving time, despite it being an hour-and-a-half session.
Well, there are only 5 cars that just have 2 driver lineups. That's the 5 GT Pro cars.
The
Because
Pro,
GT
sorry, yes.
AM also have 3 driver lineups, and you're absolutely right.
There you go.
It may be that, say, Roberto Gonzalez has not done a hot in lap at any stage, and now is doing a hot in lap. And again, you know, for the pit crew, having a team, having a car, you know, bimbling in is not representative of anything they'll do at any other stage. So they want the car to arrive hot and hot.
Yeah, just a quick reminder that second session, a consecutive session where the 6-car Hypercar field had been separated by under a second. 8 tenths this time, 4 tenths in FP2. And also, we've got 2 different cars setting the fastest sector time. Sector 1 and 2 this time in the hands of the Glickenhaus, and Sector 3 in the hands of the Peugeot. Whereas I think Sector 3 last time around was the Alpine, and by a chunk. So everybody's found speed, more speed in Sector 3.
How far off that best Peugeot Sector 3 was the Glickenhaus Sector 3?
6 tenths of a second.
Okay, so he was over 3/4 of a second up at the end of Sector 2 and ended up 2 tenths up at the line. So
there's time there.
Yeah, there is definitely time there.
There's time there.
But again, Peugeot, if they can find more speed in sectors 1 and 2, could well be close there as well. Pro-Am, top car again, Algarve Pro, second AF Corsa, third ARC Bratislava in the LMP2 classes, headed by Jota WRT and Real Team by WRT. And in GTE Pro, Corvette Racing, as Graham pointed out earlier, on the top of the pile, ahead of Porsche, Ferrari, Ferrari, Porsche. That much is as it was in FP2 with Corvette at the back. And in GTE Am, 54 AF Corsa car on top of the pile. So Ferrari ahead of Dempsey Proton, Porsche, and then Iron Lynx and Iron Dames, more Ferraris. 3 Ferraris in the top 4.
Exit of Ascari and exit of Parabolica. A bit, but if you push the exit of Parabolica, you have obviously all the way to the white line. But that's not the problem. For me, the problem is the way the car's reacting to the bumps, and it's affecting the braking and the traction so bad. That's where all the time is. The rest is like
So the answer to Gustavo's problem is going to be damping.
So I picked up the fact that it seems to be their Achilles heel, the braking, and they kept locking up, severe lockups. And I said at the time that it seems to be specifically related to their car and not the Glickenhaus Toyota. It's not a track-specific thing. It's a Peugeot item they need to work on. So those huge lockups we've been seeing, I think it's a bit of an Achilles heel for them at the moment, and they need to work on that. And that was Gustavo saying, look, that's not my problem. Elsewhere on the track, it's not about Ascari. It's not about the entry to the final corner, Parabolica. It's more about the braking. And I haven't got the confidence on the brakes. They might have to, unfortunately, raise the front of the car. It's one of the areas we can work on. But also, like you say, Martin, the damping. It's all about the damping and how you can control that platform.
And again, if you go to Aragon and if you go to Paul Ricard, the 2 main test venues, those are like a pool table.
Absolutely.
And actually, I'm not sure that this track has been resurfaced since 1922. If it hasn't, the tarmac is 100 years old, but still in incredible condition.
Oh, no, it's definitely been resurfaced.
But even so, the big stops have got big bumps in them, and that's what is going to cost the Peugeot in terms of lap time, and it might be in qualifying as well, which will be our next track action. Join us for that. Bye for now.